In today's English fluency lesson, we're going to talk about one of the best things you can do to build confidence in English. And this is something that most English learners completely overlook. To overlook something means to not think about doing it. So most English learners don't even think about doing what I'm going to talk about today. And what it is going to really help your confidence when you're having natural conversations with someone. It is very simple, very practical, and we're going to talk about how to do this step by step. Before we go into it, my name is Jack from To Fluency. If you are watching this on YouTube, welcome to you. And if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then welcome to you too. Be sure to check the description to get the best English learning resources. So today we're going to talk about how to prepare yourself for most conversations that you're going to have in English by focusing on one simple idea. It's going to give you the confidence to know that you can have these conversations without having to think too much about what to say. And it's this: creating personal sentences. Creating personal sentences that are specific to you. Think about this. When you meet somebody new, what do you usually talk about? When you meet somebody new, what kind of sentences do you usually use? It's one of two things. You're going to talk about yourself and you're going to ask questions to the other person. Let's focus on yourself. You're going to talk about your job, your likes and dislikes, your personal situation, your experiences, and other things related to you. You're going to talk about yourself. But most learners freeze in these situations. Most learners feel like they don't know what to say about themselves simply because they haven't prepared. Here's the secret. You already know what you're going to say in these conversations because talking about yourself doesn't actually change. So why not make it perfect or close to perfect in advance? Why not come fully prepared with these sentences in advance? So by the end of this episode, you'll know how to create 50 personalized sentences about yourself. Sentences you can use again and again. These will become your secret weapon for sounding fluent and confident in English. So stay until the end because this technique will transform the way you approach conversations in English. So let's start with why personal sentences are so effective. Most conversations revolve around familiar topics. Things like introducing yourself, talking about your family, explaining your job, or sharing what you did last weekend. This is what most people are going to ask you at the start of a conversation. So imagine that you meet somebody in a pub or you meet somebody at a language exchange. They're going to ask you about your family, your job, what you did last weekend, and similar sentences to this. And if you prepare your answers in advance, you'll save time, reduce stress, and speak more naturally and fluently in English. Here's an example. Imagine somebody asks you, "What do you do?" What do you do? If you've already practiced saying, "I'm a graphic designer. I design logos and branding for small businesses," you'll answer this without hesitation. If somebody asks you, "Are you married? Do you have children?" and you say, "Yes, I have 2 children. One boy and one girl. One is aged 17 and one is aged 12. They go to school at the moment," etc., etc. So you can think about creating sentences about your family. And the same with hobbies and interests. For example, if you spend a lot of your time playing computer games, you can say things like, "I play computer games. I really like this game or that game." So these sentences that you practice, along with the questions, will become your foundation. These will be your go-to sentences when you start talking with somebody who you don't know. They're not just words, They're tools you can rely on in these types of situations. Now you know why this is so important, let's talk about how to create your 50 personal sentences. In fact, I'm going to help you in the description by giving you a list of things that you can focus on, a list of topics that you're going to find really useful. So start by thinking about the things you talk about most often. Here are some ideas. Your name, that's an easy one. How old you are, although this is going to change, and where you're from. So those are the simple ones that maybe you're thinking, I already know how to do those. The next topics could be your job or your studies, your hobbies and interests, your family and friends, your recent experiences, what you normally do at the weekend, and then you can think about some fun facts or things that you've done in the past that are interesting. For example, you might have traveled to specific countries. So write down 5 or 10 topics that you'll know will come up in conversations. Once you have your topic, write a few sentences that are clear, easy to remember, and sound natural in English. So let's go back to the example of you being a graphic designer. You can say things like, I'm a graphic designer. I work with small businesses to create their branding. I love designing logos. Right now, I'm working on a big project for a local coffee shop. So here we are talking about what you do, if you like it or don't like it, and what you're working on right now. Don't try to sound overly complex. Focus on sentences that feel comfortable and natural. And then also, make your sentences specific. Generic sentences are okay, but specific ones are much better. So instead of just saying, I like tennis, you can say, I love playing tennis, but I only play in summer. Or, I love playing tennis, I try to play twice a week. I love playing tennis, but I'm not that good at it at the moment. Specific details make your sentences more interesting and also easier to remember. So people will be more interested in what you're saying and you're more likely to remember this. Now, I'll leave a link to the episode I made about using AI to help you learn English, and you can use this in this stage as well. You can use ChatGPT to come up with some of the most interesting sentences based on you and your life. Okay, the next step is to practice your sentences, because knowing what the sentences are and creating these sentences isn't enough. You want to practice them so that you can just use them naturally and without thinking while you're in conversations. Now, if you have followed me or watched my videos in the past, you'll know that I love specific methods. And again, I'll leave a link to the methods that I think work so well when it comes to remembering sentences. Things like using flashcards, things like using the listen, record, repeat, compare method, where you take the sentence, read it out loud, record yourself saying it, and then you can actually compare your sentence to what it should sound like. But the idea is that you're going to need repetition here and to practice speaking and saying it correctly in order to remember how to say this naturally. The more repetition, the better, but you can do smart repetition too. You can repeat it in a smart way. And again, all I recommend you do here is go to the description of this video or the podcast episode and check out the video I made on that, because it goes through how to use these sentences step by step. And then the idea is to practice these sentences in real life situations. And by doing this, you'll be able to practice it in a way that feels real, but you'll also notice how much easier it is to talk about yourself once you have practiced this and once you have these sentences in your memory. You can actually practice with AI. Again, go watch the video I made on that. But also another tip is when you're having these conversations, you're often thinking, oh, I wish I could say that easily, or I wish I could talk about this topic. Make notes about that and then create more sentences that are specific to you so that you won't have that problem in the future. So what you're going to do is create these sentences based on you, based on different topics, and make these sentences specific and natural. Then you're going to practice these sentences on your own before using them in real life situations with AI or with a teacher. And then also build on these sentences over time. So you can start with 50 to begin with, but as you get going, as you start speaking and talking more about yourself, you can add sentences to this list. And this is going to give you such a confidence boost, because when you've practiced talking about yourself, you'll feel prepared and confident in almost any conversation. It also builds fluency because these sentences help you internalize vocabulary and grammar so that over time you'll speak more naturally without thinking about rules. And it also allows you to use them in a flexible way because as your life changes, you can update your sentences. The method stays the same, but the content will evolve as you grow older. So the task for you, the challenge for you, is to write 10 sentences about yourself today. Start with 10. Use ones that are going to challenge you a little bit. So if you already know how to say, I'm 40 years old, that's okay. But start with some ones that you might need to challenge yourself a little bit. Practice these sentences and commit to practicing them over the long term. Add to the sentences as you go, and then start using them in natural conversations. Now, a bonus tip here is to also have common questions to ask. Have common questions to ask. Now, this might sound quite simple, and you might think, oh, I'm an advanced learner, or I know English quite well, I don't need to practice these sentences. But I have noticed through teaching and interacting with people that even if people have quite a high level, they can still benefit a lot from practicing simple questions. Things like, what do you do? Using the correct pronunciation. So, what do you do? What do you do? Or, where are you from? And then sentences such as, are you into sport? Are you into football? So your goal is to write 10 sentences or more, and then check out the description to watch videos on how to internalize these sentences and repeat them, because that is the key in order to speak more naturally and fluently. And then send this episode or this video on YouTube to a friend so that they can benefit from it too. Now, if you haven't subscribed already or followed the podcast, then do that now. Thank you so much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. And go and watch those videos I've mentioned, or go watch another video or listen to another podcast episode now. Again, my name is Jack from To Fluency, and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.